Okay, Sudarshan, good evening. Let's get started. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Yo antah pravishya mama vacha imam prashuptam sanjeevayati akhila shakti darasvadamna anyam shtahasta charana shravanatvagadin prana namo bhagavate purushaya tubhyam lasatu shrimadananda tirtendurno hrudambare yadvachas chandrika swanta santapam vinikrantati पदवाक्य प्रमाण ज्ञान प्रणम्य शिरसा गुरून् व्याकरिष्ये यथा भूतं विष्णु तत्व विनिर्णयम्. So good afternoon everyone. We are currently getting into the 11th part of Katha Upanishad. So let's do a bit of a Simha Avalokana Nyaya. So Katha Upanishad, as you know, is part of the Krishna Yajur Veda. The Rishi is Yama, Nachiketa, Kata Rishi. The Devata is Vamana Namaka Paramatma. Chandas is Anushtup Chandas. So the Katha Upanishad has two Adhyayas, first and the second Adhyaya. Each Adhyaya has got three Vallis. So just to remind you, we are at the tail end of the second Valli of the first Adhyaya. So just to give you a bird's eye view as to what we have done so far, as you know, Uddala Karuni was doing Vishwajit Yajna. But when he was donating all his wealth, and in the Vedic times, wealth meant cows, and he was donating all his cows, but the way he was donating his cows was problematic. All the sick and useless cows he was giving to all the brahmanas and people who came to his ashrama. Yeah, and his son, our friend Nachiketa, was looking at all this, and as you know, he said, "Look, you're giving." He was thinking in himself, "You're giving all these useless cows, and what use are they going to be for the folks? So at least give me as a dana, and I can at least serve some brahmana's house, and in that process, you will get some punya. And when you get punya, at least you will go to Swarga, which is what you are desiring at this point." So with that intention in mind, of course, Nachiketa said, whom are you going to give me, dad? And he says three times, and his father then curses him and says, look, mrutyuve tva dadaniti. So at that point, our friend Nachiketa makes the trip to the Yamaloka, and we dealt with lots of philosophical concepts as Yama was going towards Yamaloka, and he waits there for 3 days by Yama's gate. Yama has got this fabulous palace, and by his gate he's just waiting. He waits for 3 nights, and then eventually Yama then gives darshana to him, and he says, look, you've been such a good chap, you've been waiting for 3 nights, I'm going to give you 3 varas. So the first vara, he said, I want to get back to my father and carry on with my life on earth. When I get back there, my dad should be nice to me. He should recognize that I'm the same person who has come back to earth. And he should also not have any anger, and he should be a calm and composed, decent chap from now on. So Yama says, okay, that's fine. The boon is granted. And the second boon, Yama says, when I am on, Nachiketa says, when I am on earth, and when I'm doing all my activities, I want to know about this Agni, this Nachiketa, this. I want to know about this fire sacrifice. My dad was doing Vishwajit Yajna for Swarga. I don't want this Swarga. I want to know about that fire sacrifice that will actually take me beyond the material Swargas, and it will take me to the non-material Swarga, or Moksha as it's called. So at that time, as you know, Yama teaches Nachiketa the fire, the real fire sacrifice, as to how we should do it. The Trikarma Krit, the 3 types of fire sacrifice, with what spirit should we be doing. And we have spent a number of weeks discussing that. And then our friend Nachiketa then asks, okay, I am going to Moksha, but I want to have ask these very difficult questions, Yama, because there is lots of debate that's going on earth as to, number one, is there really something called the transempirical plane? Is there something really called as the Moksha? If the Moksha really exists, do Jivas retain their identity in Moksha? Are jivas different, equal, or they become one with Brahman in moksha? Are jivas independent or dependent on Brahman in moksha? Is there niyamakatva or controllership of Brahman in moksha? What are his greatness? So those are all the questions that Nachiketa is wanting to ask Yama as the natural progression of the boons. And that is the third boon. And this we have discussed a lot, saying about the logic of what is the sequence in which the boons are being asked. Each boon is related to the previous one. Yeah. So that is how Nachiketa is asking the boons. He's not a silly boy. He will not ask some random things. He's going to ask boons that are logically connected with each other. So he is asked this third boon. And at that point, Yama is very hesitant to give him all this esoteric, philosophical Vedic knowledge to this chap who has come to his gates. He is very skeptical to hand over that knowledge. And such was the tradition in the Vedic times, that our Vedic philosophy is not available for a man on the streets. One really needs to be eligible. One really needs to have that aptitude. One really needs to have certain attributes that actually make him eligible to become an adhikari. Yeah. And our friend Yama is now beginning to test whether this Nachiketa is really an adhikari, is he really worthy of receiving this philosophical knowledge or not? So to test this, as you know, initially he offers him various material temptations. He gives them long life, lot of wealth, house, properties, gold, stuff from the Devaloka, fancy vehicles from Devalokas, wealth from Devalokas, apsaras from Devalokas, all the instruments from Devalokas. If you want to live for one Manvantara, so be it. Do you want to live for one Brahmakalpa? You can go ahead and live and enjoy all the temporary material things. So at that first temptation, that is the first test that Yama did. And at that point, Nachiketa was very clear. He said, look, whatever you're going to offer me, however long you're going to ask, they're going to make me survive in this material world, everything is still temporary. And it is not going to give me the permanent bliss that I am after, the permanent communion with the Supreme. That is what I am after. So don't tempt me with all these material things. Let's get to the problem. Let's get to the crux of the issue. Tell me about the bigger things about philosophy. Harish, you've raised hands.
Yeah, just one question, Madhuji. So if the ultimate is what Nachiketa was after, then why was his first boon to ask to go back to Earth and to his father? Um, does that contradict, I guess, is the question.
Good question, Harish. I think it's the answer is in the negative. The reason being, if you think about the sequence in which the events have transpired, the way that events have transpired is his father has said Mrutyuvetva Dadamiti, and his father has cursed him, and he has actually sent him to Mrutyuloka. Okay, but if you remember when we discussed that, his father having he got angry, and in his anger he lost a sense of balance. He was not able to exercise his intellect, and then he just cursed him because of anger. And then as soon as the boy falls down, and then we have discussed that this is all a bit of a vision for Nachiketa, but when the boy falls down, his gross body is on earth, and he is making that pravesha to Yamaloka. But at that point, his dad then realizes what a mistake he has committed, and he's actually upset all night, and actually feeling extremely sad that what a mistake he has done. Yeah. So at that context, the first thing that Nachiketa, this is a very, very, elevated soul, Nachiketa. What he asks is, Yama is, forgive my dad for the sin that he has committed, of the curse that he has done to me. Forgive him. Give him good buddhi so that he doesn't get angry again, and that he doesn't get sad. So it is out of compassion to his dad. He first says, give my dad the good buddhi, but let me go back to my gross body and continue to serve my dad. And at the same time, Harish, this is where your question's answer comes in. Through Nachiketa, the philosophy that we learn is that we still have to use our sadhana sharira. We have to use our sadhana sharira and make philosophical progress. And that philosophical progress is what the second boon is all about, of the three karma krit, yajna, dana, and tapas, the karma yoga, the jnana yoga. So the things that we have to do, our path towards salvation, we have to use and do the sadhana sharira, and then with our own effort, we have to make that progress. You're quite right. At that point, Nachiketa could have just asked, look, I'm here. My boon could have been, make my dad a nice person, but then I don't want to go back to earth. Why don't you just send me to or why don't you send me to Swargaloka, or give me the knowledge that I need to do, go to moksha? He could have asked that, but still remember, even for you to go to moksha, you need a sadhana sharira. You need to use your gross body and make your advance towards that. And that is the sequence. And then that is where the third vara then comes in. So I hope that answers your question, that the philosophy there is that we get into Nachiketa's shoes, and like Nachiketa, we acquire a sadhana sharira. And like Nachiketa, we do the trikarma krit of the second boon. And like Nachiketa, we also have the wish to understand and know about the Supreme, because without the knowledge of the Supreme, we are never going to reach moksha. So that is the sequence that I hope it makes sense, Harish. Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. So coming back to this, so the first, so our Yama is not sure whether Nachiketa is really a mumukshu or an adhikari or not. So he gives him material distractions and temptations, and of course our friend Nachiketa refuses all this and says, "I'm not interested in anything. This is all temporary stuff in life." Okay. So Nachiketa, Yama is impressed at that point, but he is still not prepared to give him all the knowledge that is required. He still wants to test him. Okay, he's trying to impress me by not asking for material temporary things, but let me try another trick. And what is his second trick? He starts praising Nachiketa to see whether this boy is going to get egoistic. Okay. And as we all know, and we have repeatedly, in not just in this forum and in so many other forums, the first thing we have always been taught is, once the ego sets in, everything else falls down. So, for example, my guru used to say, ego must go. The first thing is ego must go. Unless the ego goes, God is never going to come in. Yeah. So that is what Yama is doing. He's testing whether, if I now start praising Nachiketa, is he going to get egoistic? Let me test him before I give him the knowledge. So our last 2 or 3 classes was about, how Nachiketa is being praised by Yama. Okay, so last week, what did we do? We did some 3 key verses. Shravanavapi bahubir yona labhyaha, shrunvanto api bahavo yamna vidyuhu, ashcharya vakta kushalo asya labdha, ashcharya jnata kushala anushishtaha. न नरेण अवरेण प्रोक्तः येष सुविज्ञेयो बहुधा चिन्त्यमानाः, अनन्य प्रोक्ते गतिरत्र नास्ति, अनीयान् हि अतर्क्यम् अनुप्रमाणात्। नैषा तर्केण मतिरापनेया प्रोक्ता अन्येनैव सुज्ञानाय प्रेष्टा, यां त्वम् आपः सत्यधृतिर्बतासि त्वाद् drukno bhuyan nachiketah preshta. So in these 3 verses, the last line, he says, bhuyan nachiketah preshta. I am indeed, so here Yama is praising, I am indeed fortunate to get a student like you. You have come to my doorsteps. You are such an elevated soul already. I am fortunate to have a student like you, who will not want to teach such an exalted soul like Nachiketa. That is how he finishes this. But then he says, in all these 3 verses, and we have done this in great detail last time. So the first verse was like, it is indeed a very excellent thing to have a very dedicated student. It is in fact amazing to have a teacher who can teach Vedanta, and it is indeed amazing that if student actually understand what is being said. And he said, such a student you are, Nachiketa. And then in the second one, what did he say? What does an average man do? With our own intellect, with our own limitations, we try to limit the unlimited. That is our problem. And we limit with our own intellect, although this infinite is beyond material comprehension, but can be known through some other means. But what we do, we just bring him down with our own limitations of knowledge. And then Yama gives an example, Ananya Prokte Gatiratra Nasti. And we discussed that, what does Ananya mean? And in this context, Ananya means, Anya means different. So Yama is different, Nachiketa is different, Brahman is different, Yama is the guru, Nachiketa is the student. These two chaps are having this conversation about Brahman. So everybody in this equation are different. But he who thinks they're all the same, Ananya Prokta, Yama censures them, says that there is no future for these folks. Gatihi atra na asti. Yeah, that he has said very clearly in the third line. And then he says, why is that the problem? Why is it that people sometimes think like this, and why do they not understand the infinite? Because Aniyan, he atarkyam anupramanas. He is Aniyan. He's in, and Anu is the Jiva. He is Aniyan. He is inside the Jiva, but he is beyond logic. And then he says, Naisha Tarkena Matirapaneya. And then we discussed that last week, talking about what are the three modes of knowledge, Pratyaksha, Anumana, and Agama, and how Pratyaksha or material perception, there is no way in which you can know about the Supreme. The only way in which you can know about the Supreme is something that is different from Pratyaksha, and an Anumana that is based on Pratyaksha. So something that is different from these two, Pratyaksha, Anumana. What is that one that is different from these two? Agama. And also Anya there means he who starts his philosophical journey of actually understanding, I am different, Brahman is different. That is the first step towards philosophical progress. That is the right route. If you choose the wrong direction, our destination is going to be different. But if you choose the right Google map, our destination is going to be right. So the Google map that we need to enter into this navigation system, the first thing that we need to enter is, I am different, Brahman is different. I am nothing, Brahman is everything. I need to know about him. So that should be our navigation system to reach a proper destination. And again, the third verse, this verse that we did yesterday, last week, is very clear. Naishatarkena matihi apaneya. Prokta anyena eva sugnanaya preshta. And then he says, you are such a big boy, Nachiketa. You've gone past the material things and you're asking non-material things. You want me to explain about the Vedas and so on. You are indeed the most fortunate student that I can have. So in this, he's starting examining, again, feeding that praising, so to test whether our friend Nachiketa is going to get egoistic or not. So that is where we left last week. So this is a new verse for today. So once Yama has said in the previous verse that by pure logic and by pure material perception, you cannot know the Supreme. And then he immediately says, but you know what? Janami aham. Yes, he says, but I know. So that word is very easy. Janami aham. Shevadir iti anityam. So this is very interesting. So let's look at this verse in detail. Janami aham shevadir iti anityam. Okay. So in the first temptation, what did he do? He gave him all the material things and tested him whether he wants all this. And then Nachiketa said, I don't want these temporary things. They're not going to satisfy my ultimate desire, which is to go to moksha. So don't tempt me with temporary material things. So at that time, our Yama then, he is now having that conversation. Yes, Nachiketa, you're right. I also know that wealth is transient. Janami aham shevadi iti anityam. Shevadi means wealth, your property, money, jewels, whatever. So he says, yes, I understand and I know like you, because even the wealth that I have in Swargaloka is also anityam. It is also transient. It is also material. Even the wealth that I have, all the properties that I have in Swargaloka, which I've offered you, is also temporary. All the wealth in Mrityuloka is also temporary. Yes, I understand. I know. Yeah. Janami aham shevadir iti anityam. Okay, but last time we said there is also a Kabbalistic interpretation of this as to, Yama is Nachiketa is a very intelligent student, and Nachiketa has already said, I don't want temporary material thing. Is Yama going to be so simple and naive and just say yes, I understand material things are temporary? No. In the Kabbalistic interpretation, in the deeper interpretation, this verse actually opens into something much more deeper. So that is a second way of looking at this verse. Yama then says, you are after the knowledge of Brahman, who is the only route to moksha. I know that Brahman because as I've said previously, this Brahman cannot be known through tarka or logic. This Brahman cannot be known through material perception. But I know this Brahman by my own aparoksha jnana, or by my own internal experience. With my knowledge of the Vedas, I have an internal experience through aparoksha jnana of who this Brahman is. So that is how you look at this verse. Janami aham, Shevadir, treasure. Who is the ultimate treasure that we are all after? That is, the ultimate treasure is the Supreme Brahman himself. And that Anityam then opens into slightly different angle here. You have to split that Anityam into a plus Nityam. Nityam is an easy word. Nityam means that which is eternal. That which is eternal is Nityam. What's that word? Is a very important word. In Maha Aitareya Upanishad, for example, iti Brahma, tatragatam ahamiti. So, iti Brahma is a dictum from Upanishad itself. In the Vedas itself describe is the name of Brahman. In Tamil, for example, you have Agara Mudala Eluthellam Adi Bhagavan Mugatre Ulagu. So in Tamil, for example, there is a similar word that the very first stands for the Supreme Brahman. Okay. In the same section, our friend Yama talks about Omkara Tattva, that this Brahman is called Om. And what is Om? Akara, Ukara, and Makara. And what is the first letter there? Akara, A. That A stands for Brahman. Yeah. So iti Brahma Nityam. So I know the treasure called Brahman, who is eternal. Okay, that is how he sets this conversation. And reading this line that way is important, because we should always think about the prakarana and what is the contextual relevance. What has been said in the previous verse? What is being said in the subsequent verse? And what does the meaning of this verse in between? So that is the prakarana. So if you take that prakarana, this is how this verse opens, and that is perfectly relevant. Janami aham Shevadir iti anityam. Okay, the next line is relevant to us. Nahi adhruvaihi prapyate hi dhruvam tat. Okay, so here let's break for a minute. Let's look at this word called dhruva. Okay, who or what is dhruvam? Yeah, this word dhruvam comes in so many places. You're all in Puranas, of course, there is Dhruva and the story of Dhruva, which you can read up, Google it and read about it. In Gita, the word Dhruva comes in a few places. And in some key Upanishad, the word Dhruva also comes in. Okay, so I'm going to request two of you to pick up these words, Gita 2:27 and Gita 12:3. So who wants to take Gita verse 2:27? Neetaji, do you want to do that, please?
Yes, chanting.
Yes, please. Yeah.
Jatasya hi dhruvo mrityu dhruvam janma mritasya cha tasmad pariharyerthe natvam shochitum arhasi.
Excellent. Thank you, Neetaji, very much. So there in 2:27, Dhruva, Dhruvam, Krishna is saying that one. Now in 12:3, for example, who is going to pick up 12:3, please? Volunteers for 12:3? Harish,
I can do it, Harish, yeah. Ye tvaksharamanirdeşam avyaktam pariyupasate sarvatragamacintyam cha kutastamachalam dhruvam.
Beautiful, Harish, wonderful again. So look at Dhruvam. Krishna is used in two different contexts. In 227, there are two Dhruvams, and in 12.3, there are Dhruvam. So what is the meanings of that? In 227, that Dhruvam means certain, for sure. Whereas in 12.3, that Dhruvam there means the eternal. Yeah, so you need to watch the word dhruvam in what context. And as you know, Sanskrit is an expansive language and it's got different meanings. So in Gita, when that word dhruvam comes in 227, it is indicative of certainty, for definite, for a firmness and so on. Whereas for dhruvam in 12.3 is the eternal. Who is the eternals of the eternal? Nityo nityanam chetanaschethananam eko bahunam yo vidadati kaman. Same Katha Upanishad defines Brahman as Nityo Nityanam. Okay. The same Nityo Nityanam in 12.3 he celebrated as Dhruvam. Achalam Dhruvam. Kutastam Achalam and Dhruvam. Yeah, that he is the eternal. Okay. So that is the primary meaning of the word Dhruvam. When you see it in Upanishads, Dhruvam means it is a name of the Supreme. It is an indication of eternality. We Jivas are eternal. Yes, Brahman is also eternal, but the eternality of the Jivas is eternally dependent on the eternal Supreme. So primarily Dhruvam indicates the Supreme Brahman. Brahman, yeah. So it's same Katha Upanishad again. It celebrates all this Dhruvam so much. Ashabdam, Asparsham, Arupam, Avyayam, Tata, Arasam, Nityam, Aganda Vachayat, Anadyanantam, Mahatah Param, Dhruvam, Nichayatan, Mrutyupashan, Pramuchyate. Okay. Ajam, Dhruvam, Sarvatravai, Vishuddham, Nyatva, Devam, Muchyate, Sarvapapaihi, Shvetashvatara Upanishad. Okay. Ekadaiva anudrashtavyam etam apramayam dhruvam. Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. So they all talk about this dhruvam. So dhruvam primarily is a name of the Supreme Brahman. Okay. So here is the important next line. Again, it is a warning for us. Nahi adhruvaihi prapyatehi dhruvam tat. Okay. So again here when you say adhruvaihi, so if dhruvam is eternal, one way of looking at it is adhruvam becomes non-eternal, the opposite. Okay. But the right way of doing it, like how I told you about the Kabbalistic interpretation, is you take a plus dhruvam, nahi adhruvaihi prapyate hi dhruvam tat. So what that means is, he who does not have the faith in the Supreme as his first step towards the journey towards spirituality, he who does not have that faith will never attain the Supreme. Okay. Nahi adhruvaihi prapyate hi dhruvam tat. Okay. So he in the first line, what had he said? Janami aham shevadir nityam. But for you to know him, first you need to have that faith that he exists. That is the first step towards a spiritual path. And again in Gita 9.3 and 4.39, Krishna reminds us of this situation. So who is going to take up 9.3 here, please?
Madhuji, shall I?
Yeah, go for it. Go for it.
Ashraddhadana purushaha dharmasyasya parantapa aprapya mam nivartante mrityu samsara vartmani.
Yeah, again, very, very clear. Thank you so much, Vinaji. So, Ashraddhadanaha Purusha Dharmasya Asya Parantapa Aprapyamam. So, you look at 9.3, very similar. Nahi Adhruvaihi Prapyatehi Dhruvantat. The language is all very similar. So, he, Ashraddhadanaha, he who does not have the faith in the Supreme. Faith in the Supreme means what? First, we need to have that firm faith that he actually exists. And then we go and make the philosophical journey and firm up our knowledge. Yeah. So the fellow who is an atheist, For him, he can never aprapyamam. He will never attain me. An atheist who does not consider that I exist, for him, he will never attain me, and he will mrityu samsara vartmani. Very clear. That fellow will be going round and round. Nivartante, nitaram vartante. Constantly going round and round in circles where mrityu samsara vartmani. He'll constantly be in either in go to Adhyatma, Naraka, come up, samsara. That is what he'll be doing. The fellow who does not even start his life by actually accepting that there is some supreme power that exists in this universe. Okay, but on the other hand,
Madhu,
yeah.
just a question, like, many of times we say, like, in Hinduism, you can be an atheist and attain elevation. Yeah. So, because the other Abrahamic religions, one of the important thing is you have to accept the God, then only you enter into the religion. One of our main principles of Sanatana Dharma, or, the Hinduism is, you can be an atheist and be a Hindu. So, your statement now, yeah, it is probably slightly, I mean, because I'm an atheist, but I'm a very good person. Otherwise, I do dharmic things, I'm not against God, or I'm not saying there's no God, but I don't do all those sort of things, all the rituals and everything, but I'm a very good person, karmically. So what is but you are saying that, like, if you don't accept then God or existence of God, then you'll be going around and around. So please clarify.
Yeah, thank you, Sudarshan. Good point. So, to be honest, to be an atheist and to be a Hindu is a contradiction in terms. You can be an atheist, but you can follow Sankhya. Yeah, Sankhya school of philosophy, for example. You can still accept the Vedas. So who is a Hindu? A Hindu is a person who has accepted Vedas as the supreme source of authority. Yeah, that is the definition of a Hindu. He who has accepted the Vedas as his route to whatever direction he wants to do. So within the Vedanta darshan, even within the Vedic darshanas, there are certain schools that are atheistic, that do not accept Brahman as a supreme entity. For example, Nir Ishvara Sankhya, which is also an offshoot, which also takes evidence from the Veda. So for a Nir Ishvara Sankhya, he is an atheist. Similarly, a Mimamsaka, and this is interesting, Mimamsakas, these are the fellows who do only the rituals. For him, just doing the karma is alone elevating. So in that sense, Sudarshan, what you may be pointing towards is, you may be an atheist, but you may be doing your karmas, you may be doing your activities, you may be doing your prescribed duties, but you don't accept the existence of a supreme being, for example. Mimamsakas are like that. They are pure ritualist. They have removed God from the equation. They will just do various fire sacrifices to go to heaven and then come back. So that is their view. But they also will go to heaven and come back, but there is no scope for them to go beyond Swarga and go to the trans-empirical plane. And that is the Mimamsakas. So if you take Nirishwara Sankhyas and Mimamsakas, they are atheists, but they are not going to attain liberation. They can go to Swarga, they can have fun in this world. But when we look at the scriptures, I'm sorry to say, you cannot be a Hindu, be an atheist, and then expect you want to have salvation. That is not going to happen. You can be an honest atheist and do your job. Fine. You can have a decent life. You can have an honest life and you can be happy with it. So that is all you're going to achieve. The question for us is, we want to go beyond that. We want to go beyond the material pleasures and so on. And for that, Hindu scriptures, Vedas, why Gita is very clear, for example, one of the Prasthanatrayas, very, very clear that Ashraddadanaha Purusha Dharmasyasya Parantapa Aprapyamam Nivartante Mrityu Samsara Vartmani. So I hope that answers that question. I think it is a myth to say that I will be an atheist, but I'll also be a good Hindu. I don't buy that argument purely based, not my opinion, it is purely based on what the scriptures are telling us. You have to have Shraddha. And when you take 439, so who wants to take a 439? That probably will answer Sudarshan's very, very challenging, interesting question. Manjunathji.
Yeah, shall I
Please
recite?
go on, Shilaji. Yeah.
Shraddhavan labhate jnanam tatparah samyatendriyah jnanam labdva param shantim achirenadhigacchati.
Beautiful, Shilaji. Thank you so much. So again, this word Sudarshan is very clear. Shraddhavan labate jnanam. Jnanam labdva param shantim achirena adhigacchati. Yeah, very clear words. Shraddhavan, he who has faith actually will gain knowledge. He who has the knowledge, param shantim. Param Shanti means, Param means supreme, Shanti means bliss. Yeah, he attains the supreme bliss in moksha after his prarabdha karma is finished. Then he will attain that supreme moksha. So 439 is very clear about he who has faith, and 9.3 is very clear that if you don't have faith, you don't have any prospects at all. So here's, so Sudarshan, leading on to your question, this is what I have put here, question for discussion, and let's open it up. Which comes first, faith or knowledge of God? Okay, once we have knowledge of God, do we get faith, or we have faith first, and once we have faith, then we will acquire knowledge of God? Which comes first, or both of them mutually inclusive and dependent on each other? So what are our views in this forum?
I think it's mutually inclusive, because I think for some people faith might come first and knowledge comes after. For some people the other way around. So I don't think we can exclude each other. Like, we can't say this is the only thing, faith is the only, or knowledge is the only thing. I mean, that's my view anyway.
Yeah, thank you, Sudarshan. Devalji.
It depends on what you call knowledge of God. I think if you are thinking of reading theoretical knowledge of God, then it can exist in itself. But if you are talking about understanding or finding God, then faith has to come first.
Yeah, Devalji, thank you very much. So I think Deval is spot on. We all have to take our first step, isn't it? The first step is what? We can be agnostic, fine, no problem, be an agnostic. But if you really are interested in getting the knowledge of God and actually getting his grace, so that is what we are after, for which our first step should be to have faith. Yeah. So so faith comes first, and then once you get the faith, you can, knowledge will come next. Yeah, and then that knowledge will then augment or amplify your faith, and with that amplified faith you go and have more knowledge. So as Sudarshan said, they kind of influence each other, but we need to, the first step is our responsibility. So we need to have faith. So Sudarshan, when you were talking about the Abrahamic religions, I just wanted to, a thought occurred to me of etymology of Abrahamic religions. Look at the word Abrahamic, okay? We are just doing this Kabbalistic interpretation of a-nityam, a-dhruvam, aha iti brahma. Look at aha iti brahma. Remove that iti out and put and then put this. What happens? Abrahma, Abrahamic. Okay.
Brilliant.
So that is how I look at the Abrahamic religion. Basically, the word Abrahamic comes actually from the Vedic Sanskrit. It comes from our Vedic tradition of actually saying aha iti brahma. That is why Abrahamic religions, yeah, of the theistic religions of the world that talk about this supreme deity is aha iti brahma. We have no issues with that. It falls very well into the supreme, our Vedic traditions. So I hope that you find interesting, Sudarshan. So anyway, faith and knowledge of God. So I think faith comes first, as Devalji said, and knowledge flows from that. Okay. So tato maya nachiketa tato maya nachiketa chito agnihi anityai dravyaihi praptavan asmi nityam. So that, to gain that knowledge, what have I done, Yama? I've taught you about this Nachiketa Agni before. Yeah, have I not taught you about Nachiketa Agni and how to do Nachiketa Agni? You know what? I am very good at doing the Nachiketa Agni. I have done the Nachiketa Agni, and that is why I am where I am as Yama Dharmaraya in the Yamaloka. Yeah. And how have I reached that exalted position? Anitya dravyaihi praptavan asmi nityam. So this is interesting how the Nitya and Anitya opens up in different ways. Anitya dravyaihi. So for us, as Devalji said, we need that faith and we need to start making our journey. How do we make our journey? We use Anitya dravyaihi. We have to use what the means that are there at our disposal. What are our means at our disposal? Anitya dravyahi. All the material coverings that we have. We have the sadhana sharira, right? This sadhana sharira is not nitya, it is anitya. This is our way. We have to use our indriyas, our body, our karma indriyas and jnana indriyas, which are all non-eternal, to make our journey towards a nitya dravyaihi. Yeah, so when you look at anitya dravyaihi, as a compound word, that means we have to use our temporary bodies and our indriyas to move towards a nitya dravyaihi. Aha iti brahma nitya dravyaihi paramatma. Okay, such a position I have attained. Praptavan asmi nityam. I know about this nitya, and I will explain to you. So this concept of how we have to use the non-eternal instruments at our disposal to know the eternal is repeated theme in the Upanishads. If you go to Kena Upanishad, as you know, called Talavakara Upanishad, that has a very beautiful verses around this. I just thought I'll put it in here. Yan manasa na manote mano hi matam. Tadeva brahma tvam viddi na idam yedidam upasate. Yeah, so like that it goes. So you have to use your material indriya. Although with your material mind, you may not be able to know him. Unfortunately, this is the mechanism that you have. You have to use your material mind to start making the journey. So that is exactly is the sense here. Tato maya nachiketas chito agnihi anitya dravyaihi praptavan asmi nityam. And the next verse says, Kamasya aptam jagatah pratishtam krutor anantyam abhayasya param stoma mahat urugayam pratishtam društva drutya dhiro nachiketo atyasrakshihi. So these are all beautiful Sanskrit words, archaic Sanskrit words. Let's try and split it open and understand a few things. We may not have time to discuss it in all its glory, but let's look at it. Kamasya aptin. So with all our desires, what do? We kamasya aptin, with our material desires, we get all these material things that our friend Yama has actually enticed Nachiketa in the previous verses with all this wealth of Mrityuloka and Devaloka. But what did our Nachiketa do? So in the last line, he actually praises Nachiketa. Drutya dhiro Nachiketo atyasrakshihi. This kamasya aptin that people all ask for and desire for, you rejected it. Atyasrakshihi means you rejected it. But instead, you sought Jagatah Pratishtam, this supreme being who is there in all of existence. That is what you are wanting. You want to know about the supreme being who is in the material world, but he is also in the trans-empirical world. He is the underlying support of everything. Jagatah Pratishtam. You are instead you're after him. Okay. Again, I picked up a Gita verse, 7:7, very famous Gita verse, and who wants to take it up? That reminds us of this word, Jagatah Pratishtam. Who is wanting to take this one, please? Or shall I pick somebody? Okay, yeah, Veena Ji, go for it.
Madhu Suresh.
Suresh, please, yeah.
Mattah parataram nanya kinchidasti dastiti dhananjaya maisam mavidam proptam sutre manigana iva.
Thank you, Suresh. Yeah, very nice. So, Mattah parataram na anyad kinchidasti dhananjaya mai sarvam idam protam sutram maniganeva. So like how the thread where the beads are all supported by the thread, such a thread is me. The whole world is is resting, and I am the support of this whole material universe. That is what Jagataha Pratishtam actually means. So you are after this Jagataha Pratishtam. Again, look, he is praising him, praising Nachiketa. Yeah, Kamasya Aptim Drutya Diro Nachiketo Atyasrakshihi. Yeah, Kruto Anantyam Abhayasya Param Stoma Mahat Urugayam Pratishtam Drushtva. So let's go through this complex sets of words. Kruto Anantyam. So Kruto means sacrifice. Yeah, sacrifice done with full knowledge gives endless benefits. So that is the first meaning of that. Yeah, Kruto Anantyam Abhayasya Param. So once we have the knowledge, you become Abhaya. And again, this is something that you will see in the Upanishads fairly regularly, that one of our aims is from fearfulness, we become fearless. And the only way of becoming fearless is to gain knowledge. And the knowledge of what? Knowledge of the Supreme Brahman, and of what? Of our understanding that he is always there to protect us. He is always, there is a design for us, there is a future for us, and he is always there to protect us. Once we take that view, the fears of our mundane life will have to go away. So that is the Abhaya. That is the state that we have to attain. Abhayasya Param. Once you cross that state of fearlessness, what does that mean? The shore for fearlessness is the moksha. Once you gain the knowledge of God and you are fearless in this world, and you journey through life, eventually you cross that Viraja river and you go to the other side. So that is the Abhayasya Param. Okay. So who is there on the other side? Abhayasya Param. Who is there? This Paramatma is there on the other side in the shore. So God's knowledge leads to fearlessness, and with that fearlessness, when you cross and move to the other side, you reach the Supreme Brahman. Who is that chap? Stoma Mahat. Stoma means Vedas. Yeah, Stoma is some sets of mantras in the Vedas. Stoma Mahat. So even beyond Vedas, he cannot be known fully by knowing all the Vedas. So that is what he is reminding. Yama reminds us again and again. Stoma Mahat. Urugayam. Urugayam is Urdvagayam, highest praise. Urugayam is, how do we praise him? As Sarvottama, as Purushottama. Pratishtam Drishtva. When we know that such a great being is actually inside me, what happens to that person? He becomes Dhrutya and Dhiraha. He becomes brave and knowledgeable. So when we are confirmed knowledge that there is the Supreme Brahman who is inside as our Antaryaman, and when we realize that, and this Antaryaman is the independent being that is controlling us and protecting us, and when we realize that, then we become brave and knowledgeable, and then we are able to, cross over this area and reach the Supreme Being. And our friend Yama here says, you are such a person, who is more elevated than you, Nachiketa. There is no one that I know who is more elevated than you, who has actually come to my Yamaloka. All I see is these mundane fellows who come to me, and I have to give them decisions, whether they have to go to Swarga or they have to go to Naraka, and then they again go to Mrityu Loka. But I'm yet to see a chap like you who is so elevated, who is actually brave and knowledgeable, and he wants to know more about this Jagataha Pratishtam. So again, in these verses, he is testing again. This is the second example of how Yama is now praising Nachiketa to see whether this fellow is going to get egoistic or not. So that person who is brave and knowledgeable, how does he know God? So our Yama keeps giving this long lecture here. Tam durdarsham gudam anupravishtam guha hitam guhvareshtam puranam Adhyatma yogadi gamena devam matva diro harsha shokau jahati. So an important words. Let's spend the next 10 minutes looking at this. So durdarsham. Durdarsham means, darsham means you're materialized. Durdarsham means beyond materialized. So that person who has gained knowledge, what type of knowledge and how does he know God? He knows God that he is durdarsham. He is beyond my materialized. He knows that Supreme Brahman as Gudam Anupravishtam. He is inside everything and he is there secretively. He is inside us as our Antaryamin, but still we don't know that he is there. Similarly, he is inside all jivas and he is also inside all his material creations, and we still do not know that he is there. That was the state of Hiranyakashipu as well, right? That pillar example. He did not know that the Supreme Brahman was inside that pillar, and he goes and kicks it, and Narasimha comes out and kills him. So that is the story that we are all familiar with. So Gudam Anupravishtam. So such a person who is inside, he is in this secretive place. Where is he in the jivas? Guha hitam, inside the jivas. He is inside the jivas as our Antaryami. So I'm going to break there for a minute. So tell us about who is going to take this thingy about where the jiva is, which, what is the Vedic view of which part of the anatomy of the body that the jiva is, and inside the jiva Antaryamin is means what? So who is going to take that up? It's a revision for us. Okay, so I will I will keep going for that. So that guha hita means guha. So hrid kamala madhyavasi. So when they say hrid, they look at the word hrid. The word heart actually comes from the Sanskrit word hrid. Hrid means middle portion of the body. It does not mean the heart. Hrid means middle portion of the body. So in the mediastinum, anterior mediastinum, middle mediastinum, or the posterior mediastinum. Okay, you have the heart, which is still in the mediastinum. You got all the mediastinal lymph nodes. You got the hilum. Sorry, we are talking a little bit anatomy here. And then in the posterior mediastinum, you got the thymus. Okay, so thymus is hrid from the Vedic perspective. And in this thymus gland, so when he says, for example, we have done this Dahara Vidya. Yeah, Dahara Vidya talks about this of Chandogya Upanishad. And this verse is very interesting and very important. Ata yed idam asmin brahmapure daharam pundarikam vashema daharo asmin antara akashaha tasmin anyad antastaha. Okay, so pundarika means lotus, inverted lotus. Thymus is a shape of the inverted lotus that is in the posterior mediastinum, which is the middle part of the chest. The jiva is supposed to be a tiny cave. The jiva is supposed to be inside that. Inside the jiva is the antaryami. Okay, so this is the view. Think about it. So guhahitam means that this guy is in the heart of the jivas, and the jiva is in the heart. Okay, guhahitam. So this guhahitam is also guhvareshtam. That is also very important. Again, very clearly the Upanishad states that this Antaryami Namaka Parama, this Antaryamin is not only in the jivas who are in the material platform of life in samsara. That is the meaning of guhahitam. Guhvareshtam means the ones that have gone to moksha. There also the souls are there, and in those souls also he is inside as their Antaryami. So that is Guhvareshtam. Guhahitam, Guhvareshtam. Puranam, that is easy, ancient, oldest, Agre, before creation he was there. He is inside Pindanda. This Pindanda is the Pura for us, yeah, Pura, a city. For Brahmanda is also a Pura. So this is also a city. So this city is where this chap is. He is not only in Brahmanda, but he is also in Pindanda. So the Drutya Dhiro, those who know about God, know him as Durdarsham, Gudam Anupravishtam, Guhahitam, Guhvareshtam, Puranam. And how do they know him? Adhyatma Yogadigamena. Okay, this is an interesting word, compound word that needs to be opened up. Adhyatma Yoga Adhigamena. Okay, so I've split it open. Adhyatma, Yoga, and Adhigama. Okay, so Adhyatma, as you're all very familiar, Adhyatma can mean so many things. Atma can mean so many things. So who is going to say what Adhyatma is? Can we have somebody to talk about Adhyatma, please? What does Adhyatma actually mean? and we hear folks talking about Adhyatma, Vidya, Adhyatma. So what does it mean? So who wants to take it up, please? Shall I pick somebody? Suresh,
knowledge of.
Yeah, Harish, go for it, and then I'll pick Suresh.
I was going to
Yeah.
say knowledge of self, maybe a simplistic answer, but knowledge of self.
Yeah, thank you, Harish. Suresh, anything? Any views here?
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
Adhyatma, yeah, it's the knowledge of self, or what geology.
Geology. Yeah, thank you, Suresh. Okay. So when somebody says Adhyatma, try and break it open. Yeah. Adhya and Atma. Adhi means what? Adhyayana. Yeah. Adhyayana means Swadhyaya. Remember those famous Swadhyaya Pravachanech. Swadhyaya. Adhyayana means study. Yeah. Study of what? Atma. Atma can be what? So as Harish ji said, Suresh ji said, it can be the body, it can be the heart, it can be the mind, it can be the jiva, or it can be the God. Yeah. So that whole thing becomes Adhyatma. Up to here, up to body, heart, and mind is material. And then beyond that is non-material, jiva and God. So our primary Adhyatma should be about jiva and God, their relationship, and so on and so forth. We should not just stop at body, heart, mind complex. Yeah, we should not stop at body, mind complex. We should go beyond it. So that is the real Adhyatma of philosophy. And then the next one, yoga. So yoga, so for example, I have a question here. Various chapters of the Gita have a title ending with yoga. Why? That's a small quiz. Who is going to answer that? So when I say Sankhya Yoga or Karma Yoga or Vishada Yoga, Vibhuti Yoga, why is that word yoga that is there? The answer is in the slide itself, but Hari, go for it.
Union, I think it's union with God.
Yeah, okay, so that's true, Harish. Yeah, anybody else?
It means the means.
Means upaya. Yeah, so that is also true. So again, the key there is when words like yoga appear in our scriptures, yoga word has got multiple meanings. Yeah, of course there are people who do yoga classes, and then you have yogas that Krishna is saying Sankhya Yoga. So Samyak Khyati Yoga, Sankhya Yoga. So what does that mean? So in the Gita, the word yoga for the title of chapters, remember we are talking about the title. There are so many verses in Gita that talk about yoga. So there the yoga is different. Whereas we are talking about the yoga for the title of chapters. So that is, I would give it to Suresh on this one. So that is the upaya or the means. So when I say Sankhya Yoga, it means to know the knowledge. Yeah, means of knowing correct knowledge is yoga. So that is one meaning of yoga. But as Harish mentioned, yoga also means union. Yeah, so yoga has got multiple meanings. And again, it's important to see the prakarana or context here. The next word here is adhigamena, attained. So what is that? By the means of knowledge of Jiva and God, who is attained? Brahman is attained. But knowledge, Devam Matva, get the knowledge of God. Dhiraha Harisha Shoko Jahati. So this is very important. So once you attain the Supreme, you go beyond material happiness and sorrow. So this is an important point. We all think that we do material things and feel happy, and that is all it is. For example, I go to a temple and I feel happy, and that is all it is. No, that is still a material happiness. Yeah. So what Krishna in Gita as well as Yama in Katha Upanishad are telling us is the chaps who know about the Supreme God, they want to go beyond happiness and sorrow, which means beyond material happiness and sorrow, which means experiencing their own inner bliss, okay, which is non-material. So that is the meaning there when you say Harsha. Harsha means happiness, Shoka means sorrow, Jahati means beyond, goes beyond that, gives these two and goes beyond that. So, and then again he praises here, Nachiketa, you have attained that state. You are so big, you come to me, you are, you are like that, you're in such a big state. So again, third reason, third way of praising our friend Nachiketa. Okay, and then he says, Yetat Shrutva Samparigrihya Martyaha Pravruhya Dharmyam Anumetamapya Samodate modaniyam hi labdva vivrutam sadma Nachiketa sammanye. So this is the fourth line where he praises Nachiketa again. And he says, you are such a big chap, Nachiketa. I'm really happy about you. You are such a exalted soul. What did he say? Yetat shrutva, having heard this, having heard what? Adhyatma vidya. Some parigrihya. So this is again a compound word. We can spend a lot of time talking about this, but we have only another 10 to 15 minutes to navigate this verse. So some means some samyak. Pari means paritaha gruhya. Gruhya means grasp. Okay, so this is what Yama is saying we should do. First, we should sample all that scriptures and various views that exist out there. Okay, parigrihya. So we have to look at various schools of philosophy, various religions and philosophies and approaches. Theistic, nihilistic, monistic, dualistic, whatever philosophy that is there, parigrihya. Do all those studies, and then some parigrihya. Then you do manana and nididhyana, and then you have a confirmed knowledge of what is the truth there. So that is the samparigrihya. To do the samparigrihya probably will take multiple births for us, or a whole lifetime for us to get to know, to reach a state of samparigrihya. So this samparigrihya, martyaha is human. So once this human has had the samparigrihya of deep analysis, he has pravrihya, means firm understanding that Brahman is different from everything. And who is that Brahman? He is dharmyam. Dharmyam, as you know, we have done it before. Dharayati iti dharmaha. That which sustains, that which supports is dharma. In Vishnu Sahasranama, dharma is the name of Vishnu. So that Brahman himself is called dharma. So with firm understanding that this Brahman is the supporter of all, he is Anum, he is the subtle, he is the subtle of the subtlest of the subtle, and he is inside everything. Yetam apya. So when he knows this truth, we in our mundane lives, we don't make an effort to know any of this. All that we see is what we see through our eyes, and we just carry on with this. We don't even realize there is something called the beyond. And that is what Yama is saying here. The ones that know that there is something called the beyond, which is subtle, which is the supporter of the universe, that can be known only through philosophical speculations and study of Shastras, and to not only be fanatical about your own views, but actually read everything else and then make an analysis and an assessment as to what is the truth here. Such a person attains Brahman. Saha modate, he rejoices. Rejoices what? Modaniyam hi ladva, that which is worthy of rejoicing. When he attains what causes joy, which is knowledge. Vivrutam, wide open. Sadma means house. Nachiketa sammanye. He says such a house or abode of Vishnu, Vaikunta, is opening for you, Nachiketa. That door that people work hard for multiple lives and gain that knowledge and eventually get his grace. Such a situation, you're already reached that gate. The door is waiting to open. You come to my gate, but actually I have realized that even the gate of the abode of Brahman is open to you, because I'm so impressed with the way you have handled the various tests that I have given you. Nachiketa sammanye. I think, Nachiketa, this door of Brahman is wide open to you. So again, in this fourth verse, our friend Yama is still praising Nachiketa. Yeah, he's praising him. 4 times he has praised. So this is the key thing I put for your attention here. This is what we should be always watchful of. But this is what we tend to fall down on repeatedly. And that is why Yama has spent so many verses in the second valli of the first adhyaya of Katha Upanishad actually to discuss this. Because nothing here is irrelevant. Everything that Yama has discussed is relevant to our current day life. Yeah. What is it? We are always distracted towards material things. Okay? We are always distracted towards material things, and we will move towards material things, but not waste time At least we think it's a waste of time to do Adhyatma Vidya. So that is the first test for us. And this is our own self-testing. Yeah, we have to do our own self-assessment here as to whether are we constantly going towards material things or not. Sure. Offer material things. That is the first test that he has done. The second test that he has done, which is also very important, is praise to test if he gets egoistic. Okay, because as I said, ego must go. Humbleness and humility is the door towards heaven, as it's said. And I have put unlike Shvetaketu. So who is going to remind us about who Shvetaketu is and why why do we have to remember Shvetaketu and ensure that we are not Shvetaketu? So who is going to take that question, please?
Shvetaketu is Nachiketa's elder brother. That's what I thought you said. And he
Yes.
goes to study to Gurukul and comes back very egoistic that he knows everything and he has studied everything.
Yeah,
And
thank you,
his father
Shilaji.
asked-
Yeah, yeah, wonderful. Yeah, absolutely the right answer. Harish, you had something to say.
Well, I was just adding that we heard about him in Chandogya Upanishad earlier.
Yeah, fantastic. Chandogya Upanishad chapter 6, but he also comes in other areas also. So this fellow Shvetaketu, the first major thing about him is he studied a lot of Vedas, but with knowledge that he gained, he actually became egoistic. And that was the result of his downfall. Because I also told you about what happened to Shvetaketu eventually. So what did he become? Did he turn out to be a great sage, or what did he do eventually? Who is going to answer that? What happened to Shvetaketu?
I think he married Rishi Devala's daughter, and he opened a, bureau for marriage or matrimonial or something like that. They were very happy because this girl kept a test for him, and both were very spiritual those days.
Thank you, Shilaji. I didn't know.
That's what I heard. I think that's what I heard from Bananje sometime.
Oh, okay, thank
somewhere.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Shilaji. That's interesting. I didn't know he opened matrimony. Sudarshan, watch
No,
out. Who is the next
that's
one?
what Bananje.
But no website though. No website.
No website. No website. It's long ago, isn't it?
Okay, that's good. So related. So our friend Shvetaketu, he went. Sorry, somebody wants to come in?
Yeah, I remember you telling that he becomes, he advocates Kama Sutra, he goes into Kama Sutra and he talks a lot about it. He's written a lot about it.
Thank you very much, Kavita ji. Yeah, that's absolutely the right answer. So look at our Shvetaketu, 12 years of Vedic Adhyayana, Adhyatma Vidya he studied, and what happened to him? He became an expert on Kama Sutra eventually, and Vatsyayana started, praising him. So that's what happened to Shvetaketu, because ego came in. Once the ego set in, that is this downfall. So our friend Yama has done.
Madhu, just to clarify, did he become Vatsyayana, or Vatsyayana is still different person?
Vatsyayana is a different person, but
okay.
he wrote Shvetaketu wrote the very first Kama Sutra, and then Vatsyayana refers to that in his work. Okay. So that is the story there. But anyway, the interesting bit there is, it is the ego that is the downfall for people. And our friend Yama is again testing Nachiketa and saying, is he going to be like his brother? His brother has done this. He has become very egoistic. So I am going to test his younger brother and see whether he is going to become egoistic. So the 4 verses, he has constantly tested our friend Nachiketa. So what happened at that point is interesting. So our friend Nachiketa, this is the last verse for today. Okay, so our friend Nachiketa, when he's hearing all this from Yama, oh Nachiketa, you're so big, you're amazing, you're so exalted, you're so knowledgeable, I'm so impressed with you. When Nachiketa is hearing all this, he's actually getting a bit of an aversion. He says, what the heck? Why is he simply praising me? I'm not liking this. Okay, so he's saying, I'm not liking this. I don't like this. Why Yama is constantly praising me? So immediately our friend Nachiketa, after listening to all this, he puts this verse to Yama. And it's a very important verse. And it is also, as we have done over the last 11 weeks, we should always get into Nachiketa's shoes and approach life. So what does Nachiketa says? Anyatra dharmat, Anyatra adharmat, anyatra asmat, kruta akrutat, anyatra bhutacha bhavyacha, yettat pashyasi tadvada. Okay, so this last line is very, the language is very funny there. Yat tat pashyasi tadvada. Yama, don't waste my time by, giving me material things or praising me. I don't want all that. You are distracting me. I'm not interested in any of these things. I'm not interested in you praising me. I have come here. I have stood here for 3 nights. You gave me the 3 boons. I've asked you for the 3rd boon, and I'm sticking to my 3rd boon. You just tell me what you have seen or experienced. Tad Vada. Just stick to the point. Stick to what I've asked you. What is that? Adhyatma Vidya. What is that Adhyatma Vidya? What is the Supreme Being? Who is he? What is my relationship to him? Does he control me in moksha? Those are all my questions. Come to the point here. Don't distract me. Who is that? What the first 3 lines is important. Anyatra dharmat. So that Brahman that I am after, that is what you have to tell me. You know about that Brahman you have said. Yat tat pashyasi tadvada. Who is that Brahman? Who is that tat? Anyatra dharmat, anyatra adharmat. Anyatra asmat kruta akrutat. Anyatra bhutacha bhavyacha. So this is beautiful lines. And of course, we need to open this up to understand the deeper philosophy. Anyatra, that is easy. Anyatra means different from. Dharma. So here, dharma, the meaning of dharma becomes different. Remember in the previous verses, dharma is a name of the Supreme. Whereas here, dharma means our routine dharmas that we are all familiar with. It can mean something that is good, something that lifts us up, or virtuous jivas or satvika jivas. Okay, so anyatra dharma, that which is different from all material good things and different from jivas. Anyatra adharmat, that which is different from adharma, bad or pulls us down, or sinful jivas. So that which is different from the sinful jivas, that which is different from all the bad material things. Anyatra asmat kruta akrutat. Okay, kruta means that which is created. Akrutat means that which is uncreated. So anyatra, that which is different from the created and the uncreated, that which is different from the bad and the sinful, that which is different from the good and the virtuous jivas. Okay, who is that? Neti neti, as you know in Brihadaranyaka, neti neti atma, that which Brahman, who is different from everything. Okay, so that is what the view here is. The kruta akrutat means created, means the effects, the material transformations that we see. So all your things about the mobile phone, the car, the TV, the whatever else material, that which is different, that which is created. Akruta, that which is different from the Mula Prakriti, that is one view there. Or created means that which we can see with our eyes. So we got Panchabhutas, right? In the Panchabhutas, what are the Panchabhutas that we can see with our eyes, and what are the Panchabhutas that we cannot see with our eyes? So who is going to take that one? What are the Panchabhutas that we can actually see with our eyes? Who is going to answer that? So let's start with Panchabhutas. So who is going to list the Panchabhutas? Sudarshan.
Panchabhutas are like Panchakarmendriyas, you mean?
No, Panchabhutas.
Oh, Panchabhutas, sorry, yeah. Like the ether, like space, and like fire, water, earth.
Yeah.
And then the wind, whatever you call it as, wind or air.
Okay, fine. So you got fire, water, and earth. Yeah. So these ones, these states of matters, you can see them. So they are called Krita. Whereas space, you cannot see space. Who has seen space? We have not seen space. Who has seen Vayu, the wind? We have not seen the wind. So these two are called Akrutat. Okay, Kruta and Akrutat has got various meanings. Acharyas in their bhashyas talk about this, so do the reference there. But essentially, my intention there to show that this fellow, our Nachiketa, is saying, don't distract me. Tell me about that thing that is different from Dharmat, That is different from Adharmat, that is different from Kruta, and that is different from Akruta. And not only present time, but also in the past, Bhutacha, Bhavyacha, even in the future, it is always going to be different. Okay, Anyatra Bhutacha Bhavyacha, Anyatra Dharmat, Anyatra Adharmat, Anyatra Asmat Kruta Akrutat, Anyatra Bhutacha Bhavyacha, Yet Tat Pashyasi Tad Vada. Okay, so he says, don't distract me, don't beat around the bush, don't distract me, get to the point, tell me about that. I want to know, please. Okay, so it is so Yama is eagerly waiting for this situation. This is what Yama wants from Nachiketa, and Yama is again so delighted. He says, oh, this is a real adhikari. He is a real mumukshu. I have tested him, I have distracted him, but he is not wavered. He is firmed up towards knowledge about Adhyatma Vidya. Okay. So at this point, Yama is very impressed and he says, okay, in that case, as you wish, I'll teach you about the supreme being. And then he will first start, there is a third test that Yama does. So that is an interesting third test. Remember, 3 comes in Kata quite a lot. So there is a first state of material enticement, second test of ego, and the third test, he puts it in the next verse, and then he expands the philosophy. Okay, I will teach you this philosophy, and the proper philosophy of Katha Upanishad starts from here in the second valley. The last few verses of the second valley are the most important verses. I would strongly urge you to take an opportunity to memorize these verses, because the more we memorize and do Shravana and Manana, the more philosophical truths that we get. So I'm very pleased that I've come to this verse, which we are going to deal in the next session. And what is this verse? The one that I have also been waiting for, like Yama. Sarve Vedaha Yatpadamamananti Tapamsi Sarvani cha Yadvadanti Yadichanto Brahmacharyam Charanti Tatte Padam Sangrahena Bravimi Omityetat. So this is the first introduction to the philosophy of the Veda, the deep philosophy of the Vedas that Yama is going to start. So what I am going to hope is we all join over the next several weeks, because following this verse, Yama then really takes off. He really takes off at the highest levels of philosophy to discuss who is this Paramatma and what is its position, what is our relationship, and so on and so forth in the next several verses. So on that note, I'm going to close today's session. Thank you very much for listening. Next week, I'm not sure whether I'm traveling to London next Sunday, so I'm not sure whether we have a class next week, but I'll keep you posted within the next day or two for next week, Sudarshan. But for now, I will close today's session. Thank you so much for listening. As you know, I've got an innumerable number of slides to discuss what Yama has been saying in that particular verse, Sarve Veda Hayat Padamamananti. So we'll take it up in all its dimensions in the next session. So thank you so much for listening. Krishna Pranamastu. And if anybody has any pressing questions, we'll take it up for discussion. Thank you so much.
Madhu, where does Bananje get all this, knowledge from? Mahabharata, is it?
So I think Acharyas Bandanji is an exalted Vedantic scholar, and there are very many highly learned folks. So everything, so the way you look at this is you have to go to Prasthana Trayas, Shilaji. So you have to go to Prasthana Trayas. Number one, you have, of course, the Sutra Prasthana, the Gita Prasthana, and the Upanishad Prasthana. So you have the 3 Prasthanas. Then you have your Acharya Bhashyas. So you have the Bhashyas of, so for example, if you take the Upanishads, Shankaracharya has done Bhashya for 10 Upanishads. Madhvacharya has done Bhashyas for 10 Upanishads. What Ramanujacharya has done is, Ramanujacharya has discussed all the Upanishads and the meanings of some key verses within his Sutra Bhashya called Shri Bhashya. Okay, whereas following Ramanujacharya, one of his disciples called Ranga Ramanujacharya. So Ranga Ramanujacharya has done the Upanishad Bhashyas. He has done Bhashyas for 10 Upanishads as well. So you have to take these Bhashyas, put the Sutra and Gita, and then understand what the meaning is using Tatparya Lingas and so on. So that is the beauty of Shastras, and I think that, as you rightly mentioned, that is how we mundane folks can absorb the nectar of knowledge from these learned people, or gurus as we call them. And the gurus, what they do, they learn from their gurus, and it is this Guru Sishya Parampara. And what is that ultimate guru? It is it is Brahma, and it is our Vishnu, and it is our Chaturmukha Brahma, and from there this particular sampradaya has actually come down. So what we are doing here is what was taught by Hayagriva Namaka Paramatma to Chaturmukha Brahma. Okay, and that is how we have, that is the tradition of stuff. So I don't think anybody invents knowledge. All that they do is they just share it down the generations. Hope that answered the question.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And Madhu, in that context, there may be people coming even in the future as well, isn't it? Even the current in future who might write a different bhashya. I mean, I'm not saying different, but sort of in the way they have seen it.
Yeah, absolutely, Sudarshan. So there are two views around this. Okay, number one, it takes for one to understand the language of the Vedas and the philosophy of the Vedas. It is said that you have to study at least 12 times. Okay, you have to study something 12 times to understand it. After 12 times, if you have understood what the Vedas is saying, then you are a Rishi. So that is a definition of a Rishi. A Rishi is a person who has actually understood the Vedas after studying 12 times. So I don't know what our state of affairs is. So that is a definition of Rishi. The second one is, you should be seeing new things, knowledge that comes out, because as we said, Vedas may have at least three meanings. It is not just three, it is at least three. There are infinite meanings to what the Vedas are saying, because that Brahman is infinite. Yeah, there are infinite meanings. So for more and more folks, both in the past, in the present, and in the future, new thoughts, new ideas of Brahman that is compressed within the Vedas will come about. So in that sense, you're absolutely right. You may have some exalted Bhashyakaras who might come in the future, who might be able to look at it differently and give us some new knowledge, new insight about Brahman.
Okay, I think, will it be okay to say if people watch Hindu Knowledge Academy YouTube videos 12 times, they become a Rishi?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think this is what the Shravana Manana concept is. At least you have to do it 12 times. Otherwise, it's not going to come in, is what I've heard. So yeah, the more we read, the better we all
We have to do 12 times and understand and practice and realize everything, isn't it?
That's
Then
right.
only will become a Rishi, not just, listening to it 12 times or doing mananam, but practicing is as important, more important maybe.
Absolutely, Sheilaji, agree.
But I think, Madhu, other thing is, well, I don't know, it's one of our wish, but whether it is going to be possible or not. But with a lot of modern science developments and everything, with the neuropsychology, neurobiology and everything, maybe if somebody can sort of reinterpret, or not reinterpret, sort of do a bhashya based on this, based on the Vedas and Upanishads, based on the neurobiology of the current thinking and everything, that will be even more good. I think that will suit the modern audience, and that will bring more people. I don't know. I mean, I'm saying I may be completely wrong here, and it may not even be possible, because a lot of what we talk is not even in a physical parameter. It may be in a different dimension. So, but that's, I'm just saying, like, where we can make some connections, that might be like, if we do this particular practice of meditation or particular chanting, this sort of this good hormone is being secreted, like in some sort of I'm talking very crude here, but I'm just saying something like that might interest people in future as well.
Yeah, so true, Sudarshan. I get your points. I don't know if anybody else wants to come in here. For me, there's just this verse of Gita that comes in: Manushyanam sahasreshu kaschid yatati vittaye tatanam api siddhanam kaschin mam veti tattvataha. So whatever you do, however you want to reach people and so on, Manushyanam Sahasreshu Kaschid. That is the truth. Yeah. So how much ever you do, there will always be 1 in a million who wants to go in this direction, Sudarshan. So maybe currently it is 0.1 to a million. Maybe by having this modern approach, we might be able to get 1 in a million. But there are, as you know, there are many amazing people out there who put on all these videos of, you know, modern approach to philosophy. You know, I certainly, from my own personal experience, I look for inspiration every day of my life. We need some new inspiration so that we all confirm that we are actually doing the right things. And I'm seeking for new inspirations all the time. And I find some of these YouTube channels that are out there, and I make an attempt to share those videos in Sahiti group and elsewhere. So I think there are individuals, exceptional individuals, who are doing that kind of service to humanity. But the bottom line, of course, is no matter whatever facilities you provide, 99.9999% of humanity will be more towards the material world, period. I think that is the fact of life. And maybe we have to accept that. I don't know if anybody else wants to comment on this, please.
And I think one way it's also, that's the way it's designed, because coming from the material to spiritual world, or leaving the material world should not be made very easy, because then you cannot really enjoy this bit. You know, it should not be, because it should be a very difficult thing, so that you make all the effort and come out of it, so that like you are ready, you are mentally very mature and ready, and you know, it's very proactive from your side, so that you know, you're ready to gain the knowledge and everything from this side. So yes, I mean, I agree that like it's designed to be more material always, you know, the sort of like the baseline point is to be more material. The default position is material, but you know, so but again, it's where this soul makes that effort to come out of it. That is when, like, I think only few people can achieve it, but at least then those few people will be very, very great. You know, they are going to convey a lot of messages, like our spiritual gurus from the past. So, you know, that's the way it's designed. I mean, again, that's my view anyway. So
Thank you, Sudarshan. Yeah, absolutely agree with that. Yeah. Okay. So it looks like we don't have any further questions. So Harish, do you want to close the session with Om, please?
Sure. Oh.
Excellent. Thank you, everyone. Stay safe. As I said, next Sunday, I'm not available, but we'll try and fix up another program. If not, I'll catch you guys in a fortnight's time. Okay. Take care. Bye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.